Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Secure by Design event covering your pathway to the new Designing Cisco Security Infrastructure certification. My name is Matt Saunders, and I'll be your host for the session. Before we meet our presenters for the day, I have just a couple of housekeeping and agenda slides to cover here. So let's dive into those real quick. Let's see. First of all, for housekeeping notes, let's see, for Q&A throughout the session today, we welcome your participation in both the Q&A for the session today, as well as our poll questions. We have a Slido event set up to handle both the poll questions and take your questions to the presenters as we go through the presentation for the day. In the upper corner of the screen here, you'll see a QR code that talks about joining the Slido session. So we invite you to scan that QR code and get yourself logged into the event on Slido and submit any questions you might have for the speakers as we progress. And we'll also save a bit of time at the end of the session for some verbal Q&A from the questions that come in throughout the event. And secondly, and probably most important, the webinar will be recorded today. You will receive a link via email after the session ends if you pre-registered for the event. Otherwise, wherever you're joining the session from today, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, the playback of the session should be available essentially immediately following the ending of the session today as well. So we'll get the recording out to everybody and make sure it's fully accessible afterwards. Submit your questions as we go and join our poll, please. And let's see, before we dive into with our speakers, let's cover a couple of quick agenda items. First, we have the first topic is we'll introduce and kind of give an overview and a review of the new Designing Cisco Security Infrastructure certification. Then we'll talk about the exam itself and the certification requirements. And then we'll dive into a really fantastic learning path that we will be publishing in the near future on Cisco U to help you prepare for this certification exam, as well as some really good study tips to set you up for success on passing this new certification exam. And then at the very end, like I mentioned, we'll save a little bit of time for additional Q&A. And so let's talk about, let's meet our presenters, and we'll bring our first speaker in here in just a moment. First, we'll have George Koukas, who is the leader of our exam program management team, as well as Doug Notini, who's the leader of our learning and development security content engineering team. So the content engineering team is the team that develops all of our courseware content, as well as Mohammed Bhatti, who is our security exam program manager. So that'll be our group of speakers for the day. And I'd like to bring in our first speaker, George Koukas. And George, I want to get started simply by asking you, can you give us an overview of Cisco certifications a little bit, the value of certifications, what they are, and why folks should go for them?
Hi, Matt. Hello, everybody. Absolutely. So one of the questions that I get a lot is, what is certification and why should I get certified, right? The certification is a proof of knowledge. It's not a certificate. It's not an end of course degree or anything else. It's a piece of paper and a credential that everybody can validate that you have the appropriate skills and knowledge in order to execute X, Y, Z, or Z. Now, you may say that, you know what, I've got experience, right? Why do I need a certification? Well, that's valid, and that's a valid question. The thing is that the certification, the credentials that you gain through completing a certification is something which will introduce you to hiring managers, to recruiters, to your manager. And just to show you a few numbers over here, this is a survey performed by Pearson VUE. Pearson VUE is our exam delivery partner. And people that actually got certified, the majority of them say that they feel more confident performing their job. The majority of them saw a significant pay rise Plus, they tend to be more attractive to hiring managers and recruiters. Now, why should you get certified with Cisco and not any other vendor? The reason is this slide that you see over here. So Cisco provides a complete capture of a holistic approach to the IT portfolio, covering a lot of different technologies and a lot of different architectures.
And George, this is a really great slide. I love this slide to show a full overview of the program and the portfolio. And for the security track in particular, so it looks like that's the gray
Yep.
column there. And then the new exam, can you talk about how that fits into the security portfolio specifically for us?
I've got this in the next slide. The
Okay,
reason why I
perfect.
didn't include the new security design exam is because it's not live yet. It will become live on the 20th of May. So as you can see over here, so the previous slide was a bird's eye, an overview of the full Cisco portfolio when it comes to certifications. This slide over here concentrates a little bit more on the available options or on the available concentrations on the security space. And as you can see over here, the security design exam is maps to the security track. But again, because it's not live yet, it will become live on the 20th of May. That's the reason why I do not have it, or I didn't have it in the previous slide. And just to go a little bit deeper, what does this new exam, this new certification include? So this certification, it's a 90 minutes exam. It's a 60-point exam, and it tests the candidate knowledge in designing security concepts and architectures when it comes to applications, risks, events, automation. So the thing that it does, it has a little bit, let's say, a holistic approach when it comes to security. And now let's see some of the job roles and what is the profile of the individual that should approach this certification. As you can see in this slide, we're targeting or we recommend for somebody that has 3 to 5 years of experience in security, 2 to 3 years in designing security solutions, and experience in security practices and frameworks. These individuals may be a cloud security architect, a security engineer, a DevSecOps engineer, pre-sales. So if you ask me personally, this includes or covers the full portfolio when it comes to security. But in order to talk a little bit more about the security exam, this new exam, let me bring up my colleague Mohammed, who is working actively in building up this exam. Mohammed, can you please share a few information about this new exam, how it's built, what it includes, and additional information?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, George, for bringing this up. It's really excited for this new exam. So the exam specifically focus on designing robust security architectures that address modern threats and challenges associated that we have in our enterprise. Now, the blueprint of the exam cover four key topics. It covers the main domain of the blueprint starts with insecure infrastructure to application, then it goes to risk events and compliance sides, and then we also covers some of the emerging technologies, things including AI, generative AI, automation, or having a security during the development process. Now, these four domains mainly cover the foundational security principles that are used in designing a secure enterprise network. It also covers the impact of emerging technologies. We have AI, generative AI, machine learning, quantum computing, specifically in network and infrastructure security. The exam ensures that the candidate are not just familiar with traditional security principles and standards, but it also prepares you to address the evolving threat landscape and the increasing complexity of hybrid and multi-cloud environment. Now let's dig a little bit deeper into each domain separately. Now, the first domain we have is secure infrastructure. Within the secure infrastructure, this domain covers things like how do we design security measures that protect against a wide range of threats from an endpoint devices to the network infrastructure itself. Now, the first task, if you look at within the domain, it covers security approaches that we may take when implementing endpoint security, which covers things like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, identity intelligence, etc. Now, the second task is about the importance of the security architecture used within a hybrid work environment, secure IoT devices deployment, and securing the cloud-based application across on-prem data centers and multi-cloud environment. Within the task 3 and 4 of this particular domain relates to securing network infrastructure in general. It could be using technologies like SD-WAN, IPsec, DMVPN, and given the business requirement, you would be able to decide things, decision you can make things like which firewall to use or which feature to configure on the firewall for the particular use case, whether to use a traditional firewall or a next gen firewall or a web application firewall, an IPS or IDS. You'll be able to make those informed decisions given the business use case. Now we go to the domain 2 of the exam, which covers mainly deals with application. Here we cover what are the best practices to secure critical business application, whether we deploy them on premises or in the cloud. We cover things like microservices architecture. Some of the advanced functionality of the firewall is also covered within the domain, which can include topics like SSL offloading, SSL description, and data loss prevention solutions, DLP solutions. Within this domain, we also cover how to secure cloud native applications, microservices, containers, and serverless infrastructure that ensures macro and micro level segmentation to prevent lateral movement by various attack vectors. We also touch base on the impacts of emerging technologies like generative AI, machine learning, and quantum computing, like what new security challenges it introduced to ensure that we are prepared to design our security policies that address these challenges. The third domain that we have deals with risks and compliance. This covers, this is very critical domain because we need to be able to identify and mitigate risks that we might have in our organization. Now, this particular domain ensures that we understand the industry standard security framework like MITRE, NIST, Cisco Safe, etc. And we should be able to make informed decision based on any critical incident that may happen. The domain 4 covers the evolving technologies, specifically dealing with AI, automation, and security during the development process. We know that the security is no longer just about configuring a traditional firewall or monitoring logs. The emergence of these technologies like generative AI is quite a game changer for us. Think about it. I mean, AI can analyze massive amount of data in real time. It can spot anomalies. It can create exploits for vulnerabilities, and it keeps getting better on it. We need to better understand the role of AI in security, in securing our network infrastructure. This domain specifically deals with this security automation by using API tooling, infrastructure as a code, container security, and also discuss how to design secure CI/CD pipeline. So George, can you please take us through why is it important to understand these domains within the blueprint, and how does one look at the blueprint and decipher it?
So, Mohammed, as you can understand, the blueprint contains a lot of details, and it also contains a lot of secrets. Right? It's essential during your studies to be able to read the blueprint in a proper way. Plus, use your blueprint as your Bible during your studies. Now, let me try and decrypt the blueprint and try and show you a few things that maybe most of you have not even noticed. So the 30% that you see over there on your screen is the domain weight. So the 30% represents the amount of questions that you expect to find on your exam from this specific domain. The domain, the 1.0, is a high level description of what will be covered in this section. 1.1, select the security approach to protect against threats, is the task, is a lower level description of the topic that will be covered. And the subtask 1.1.1.b is a low level description of the topic covered. Now, some of the sections, some of the tasks do have subtasks, some of the tasks do not have subtasks. We always design the questions to match a specific domain, a specific task, and or a specific subtask if it's available. Now, the thing I want to drag your attention to is the first verb on each task. You may find select, you may find describe, you may find modify in this specific blueprint. In Cisco, we use something which is called cognitive complexity, and it's a way that it's used for many years now in the academic field, that by using verbs, you can go deeper or shallow on specific topics. So in this specific case, for this specific exam, we come across 4 verbs. Describe and match. This goes on to the remember level in terms of complexity. You will usually find questions which are based on memorization. They will not be complex, and they will try to measure your ability to understand something on a on a high level, not on a low level. Then if we go a little bit deeper, you can see select. Select is on the apply level. It goes a little bit deeper, so you expect to find a little bit more complex questions over there, where you will need to take a specific scenario, analyze it, and try and find the appropriate solution for this specific scenario. And then even if we go even deeper, modify, which is on the analyze level, you expect to find more complex questions with more moving parts. So you need to take the question, tear it apart, find the individual components, and try and answer the question. I understand that this may seem a little bit not super clear, but I believe that Mohammed can give you an overview of these verbs based on examples. So, Mohammed, what kind of questions do we expect to find on the exam? Plus, do you have any examples to show us?
Absolutely. Thank you, George, for giving the bit of overview. So let us go through some of the examples. Now, there are two different types of question that you will see appearing in the exam. The one is the multiple choice, which is like our traditional kind of that appears in all other exams. So this will have two different types where you will be given either of 4 options and one would be the correct option, or you'll be given 5 option and you'll be asked to choose multiple or either 2, select 2 kind of question. And the second type of question is a drag and drop, where you'll be given certain option on the right, certain option on the left, and then you'll be dragging one box to the other, matching certain scenarios. So these are the 2 type of questions you'll get. Now, going through the type of question or some of the examples that may appear, now as George mentioned, we have certain verbs, and all these verbs define the complexity and how what the difficulty level of the question is. Now, the first example you see on the screen is describe. Now, describe question is the least at a difficulty level, which sort of covers the theoretical knowledge, which the question can just be things like, okay, how would we benefit from generative AI in security? Things like which framework emphasize data privacy and protection when deploying the developing and deploying AI systems, right? So it's very brief, a summarized question, no particular scenario, theoretical knowledge, and you'll be given 4 options, out of which one would be correct. Now, if we go a little bit into deeper scenarios, so you have blueprints task, which starts with a match verb. Now, with the match, you will be given either a business requirement as a scenario in the question, and you'll be asked, okay, within that scenario, choose which industry standard document that sort of fits that particular scenario, or vice versa. You could be given within the question, like in the example, if you look at the first question, speaking about ISO 9001 standard, you'll be asked a question to be able to present an option that you need to match to ISO 9001. So you'll be given, and there is also an option where you could be presented with an exhibit. If you look at the last example, where an exhibit is given from specific standard document, and then the question can be asked, okay, which specific standard could it match to? The next example relates to a select verb. So there are certain tasks within the blueprint that starts with select. And here you'll be given a scenario-based question where, yeah, as in the example you're seeing, this particular example, deals with an example of a financial company, trying to deploy a cloud-based system and want to secure. They've recently had a breach on their sensitive financial data, and then there are options that they're asking, okay, what can we do so that this particular breach doesn't happen in future? So you'll be given a scenario, and you'll be given certain options how to protect or how to resolve that particular scenario, whether there's an issue going on, or whether they just want to deploy or design some network infrastructure or some secure elements. The next in our list is some of the question that starts with modify. Now, this is also very descriptive question, a scenario-based question. As you can see from the example, there's a very detailed scenario given that even gives some of the requirements that you need to deploy in a security architecture. And then there's certain option given based on the scenario. You need to choose, which option would be the correct option. So I think that these are the examples. So Matt, can you please now elaborate on the learning path sides, please? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mohammed and George, both for covering that overview of the certification program, the certification offering, this particular certification itself, as well as the exam and kind of the structure and the logic behind the exam, the way the exam topics were put together and the sample questions. Really appreciate that, Mohammed and George, both. We've had a few really good questions come in through the Slido Q&A. Already so far during the session. I'm going to save most of those for the end to talk about verbally. I just want to kind of mention the Slido Q&A section again and the polls and Slido again, and just encourage folks to join that event if they have not done so already, and submit your questions, and we'll have a couple. We'll get a few more in for the end of the session, and then with that, I want to go ahead and bring in Doug, who is our the lead of our security content engineer team. And Doug, how are you? Thank you for joining the session today. You want to kind of start to talk about what you and the team have been working on for the learning path for this exam?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. And thanks to George and Mohammed for giving a clear overview of the certification blueprint and really talking through the domains and the topics and verbs and how they come together, and having a firm understanding of that really Sets one up well for exam preparation. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how we take that blueprint and transform it into effective and engaging learning. And to do that, it's not like we just throw content up against the wall and hope it sticks. There's a much more involved, meticulous process that we use, and that process involves a design document. I'd like to share some of that with you at this point. The design document really does it gets about the idea of taking the blueprint and just breaking it down. And we really do follow that same mechanism you heard George and Mohammed talking about, where we're talking about domains and topics and verbs, and we have to align with that. We have a team for every certification training that we do here. We have a team of folks who work on a design document. And that team for this particular project includes a Cisco Certified Design Expert. The design expert has the technical knowledge, right? Whether it's for VPNs or whether it's for firewalls or whether it's for framework. The design expert has that capacity to understand the concepts at an expert level and make sure that we're not missing anything. But it wouldn't be sufficient just to say, okay, look, we've got a bunch of content. We have to make it effective and engaging. And that's where the instructional designer comes to play, because the instructional designer understands adult learning and effective transfer of knowledge. And together, they start breaking this down. So what you're seeing on the screen at this point is a shot of our design document. At the highest level, we break the blueprint down into tracks. Okay, our learning path has 6 tracks. And as you'll see, these tracks are a compilation of courses that all cover specific areas of the blueprint. Now, you might recall that the blueprint had 4 domains. So a natural question might be, well, 4 domains, 4 tracks. So that's where our instructional designer comes into play. Okay, when we were looking at this, we could think in those terms, but it would be better, we felt, and more engaging if we broke this down in this particular format instead. So we'll go through the 6 tracks and you'll see, but each track, just to talk it through a little bit, I'll expand on track number 1. And you'll see track number 1 is comprised of 5 courses. So now we start breaking this down at a further granular level. It's sort of bite-sized chunks, course by course. And each course is focused appropriately at a specific area of the blueprint. Let's go through it a little bit. You'll see each course, first of all, has a name. So for example, in the blueprint, we might see a topic, the use of frameworks in security design. And in track 1, course 4, we see the name security and design framework. There's a one-to-one mapping that's going on there.
Hey, Doug, maybe just for some of these bits that we might want folks to be able to read live, I know most of this is just for visual referencing, but for some of the bits where you kind of zoom into some of the details, maybe we'll zoom in a bit and within Excel so you can kind of see some of that text a little bit easier on their end. Yeah, thank you so much.
Does that work a little bit better?
I think so, yeah, that should be good. Thank you.
Wonderful, you bet. Okay. Each course also has an objective, right? The terminal objective is sort of the big picture. It's what am I expecting you to be able to do after you complete your curriculum? And from there, we continue to break it down to the topic level and even to the enabling objective level. So this gives us that definitive, are we really mapping down to the subtopic level in the blueprint? You'll also note, in terms of, there was a discussion on verbs. And if I look at my terminal objective for this course, identify and discuss security design and management, that verb identify maps specifically to the cognitive level called out in the blueprint. So this is, like I said, we're not just putting content up against the wall and hoping it sticks. We have a very definitive, meticulous purpose in going through and making sure we map item to item, topic to topic, so we're not missing anything. And finally, you'll see enabling objectives. So if the terminal objective is the big picture, what are you supposed to be able to do? The enabling objectives are more at that micro level to make sure that we're going through and dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's and really bringing us all together. Finally, in this is sort of a high-level design. You'll see a call out, in this case, topic 3.4. This particular course in track 1, course 4, hence the title course 14, is a direct mapping to topic 3.4 in the blueprint. So that's a little bit of information about how we bring this together. So now that you've seen how we sort of make the secret sauce, let's come back and take a look at a bigger picture of the overall blueprint. And if I could transition there.
Thanks for sharing that kind of behind the scenes thinking about how, what you and your team, kind of the process you guys go through to put together what you're going to show next. I think it's, it's super insightful. It's a little bit inside of baseball on talk, but it's also super insightful, I think, for folks. So thank you, Doug.
You bet.
And let's see, I think we would like to go back to the slides, actually, for my good friend helping us to control the visuals on screen. Thank you so much. All righty, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is a training program is structured around those 6 tracks that you heard me talk about. And each of the tracks represents specific areas and tie-ins to the blueprint. The tracks, as you see them here, track 1, security architecture, design fundamentals, followed by track 2, security architecture for infrastructure protection, firewall technologies and advanced security solutions, application security and secure data flow, risk management and incident response strategies, and then DevSecOps, integration and automation and automated security policies. The makeup of the learning path is a total of 23 courses, as you'll see, and these all give you, real world scenarios to work through and to consume. But learning is not just about going through content. It's also about getting some practical experience. So for that reason, we've added in and taken the opportunity to add in 11 scenario-based labs. These are very important, right? Because they give the user, the learner, the ability to test their knowledge in a real world scenario. And that's all part of getting ready for the exam, is going through and making sure that you have the appropriate information, you understand it properly. And the labs, they're really a sort of a safe opportunity to test that knowledge and develop some of those troubleshooting skills are going to be so important, because at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you understand concepts and you can apply those concepts. These labs are key in terms of making that happen. And then finally, one more step up, right? We talk about how we did that meticulous mapping between the learning path and the blueprint. So what I'm bringing in now is just a shot that shows that mapping course by course. So for example, if I look at track 4, course 1, security solutions based on application and data flow, that maps directly to topic 2.1 in the blueprint, including the appropriate cognitive level, verbs, and you name it. Right? So we have a very structured approach here, and if you follow this, it's sort of a blueprint, a roadmap, if you will, for success in preparing for the exam. At a high level, the learning path you saw is made up of the 23 courses. These are featuring the real-world security scenarios. So we take the time to go through and get that hands-on, real-world use case-based content to aid and assist in the comprehension of the material. We talked about the 11 scenario-based labs. In addition, we've got video. So your modality of consumption on the training might be either instructor-led or e-learning, depending upon your choice. The video is there really to help out the e-learner, right? If you're going to be looking at this and working through the content at your own time, at your own pace, the videos allow us to do a deep dive into some of the more complex topics and sort of give you the information required to master those topics. For pre and post assessment test questions, as well as the numerous topic review questions. Let's stop and talk a little bit about the questions here. So there's different kinds of questions that we bake into the training. You heard me say that we have 6 tracks. Well, that's true. And so at the track level, we give you a pre-track test and a post-track test. This is what we refer to as the pre and post assessments. These are practice questions. I would stress that these are not the questions you're going to see on the exam, but they're like the questions, right? So they again help you to gauge at the track level whether or not you've consumed the content and you understand it. That's key in terms of identifying gaps and areas that you might have to go back and take another look at. So we give you the pre-test, we give you the post-test to help you with that assessment. There are also a number of topic review questions. You'll see this when I do the demonstration. These are more in the moment. You know, you're going through, you're watching a video, you're doing an activity, and after that, we want to quiz you, make sure that you comprehend this fully. So the topic questions are integral as well. The modalities, it's either instructor-led if you're looking for that real-time interaction with an instructor and your peers, or the ELT that you'd see on Cisco U. I don't know if I've mentioned it yet, but I know this certification test is due out in May. We have a really good timing on this one, which I think is fantastic. I think you'll see our Cisco U learning path will be available in the June-July timeframe, so right on the heels of the release of the test. So your choice, whether it's going to be instructor-led or ELT. The video there does sort of take the place of the instructor in terms of the ELT modality. I'd like to go ahead and just do a quick demonstration of one of the courses that we have. And I would say to you at this point, we sort of are in the works on this. And so this is sort of peeling back and showing you where we are sort of real time. So forgive me, some of the video is not in here. It might not be as complete, but I thought it would be just important to get this in front of you so you can see what it is. This is one of the courses. This is actually course 1 from track 1. You can see the introduction here. Again, starting to walk you through real world scenarios. There's a lot of questions that we ask you here, a lot of real world scenarios that we pose for you here. And at the end of it, you'll see the number of topics. I mentioned the topic review questions. So as we go through, and you can see that the questions we're asking you throughout. But finally, at the end here of the topic, you'll see a topic review question. The nice thing with the topic review questions, in this case, it's a multiple choice question. If you, of course, choose the correct answer, you get the feedback. Even if you choose an incorrect answer, you get the feedback. So it does give you that in the moment information and feedback on exactly where you're at. I mentioned the scenario-based labs. We actually do have one of those scenario-based labs here. We hit you with not one, but in this case, you'll see 7 different scenarios for you to work through and consider. And then we have suggested answers for those as well. Okay, so shifting back now. Now that we've taken a look at how we create the content and what the learning path looks like, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion on exam preparation, how ways to get yourself ready for the big day. So items to talk about. Number 1, understand the exam blueprint. We've been talking about it throughout the entire webinar, but it really is an understanding of the domains, the topics, and the verbs, so that you know how much of a deep dive you need to do. Once you've got that understanding, then it's time to develop a study guide for yourselves that really aligns to that. Along those lines, crashing the learning forums. The forums are a great place to go to get information from your peers. Lots of real world information coming to you from those locations. If you've got concepts that you're having a difficult time with, it's always good to see what's up on the forums and ask those questions and get the support of peers, and as well as give it. Like it's not just a one-way street, right? It's a give and take. So crashing the forums, highly advised. Cisco U, I will say this, that again, this learning path will be available on Cisco U in the June-July timeframe. But if you have access to Cisco U today, I can guarantee you that there's content on Cisco U already that you can leverage to help you study for this test. Cisco U has a fantastic search mechanism. So if you start looking at particular topics in the blueprint, punch those into Cisco U, hit search, it's going to come back and you'll see a plethora of information showing up there in different formats. Cisco Live, and also it's a great opportunity, right? I just came from Cisco Live last year in Vegas. It was phenomenal, all the breakout sessions. So although it's a really good thing to go to Cisco Live, don't forget that those breakout sessions are available on demand online. And again, you can take your blueprint armed with that, do searches through the Cisco Live archive. You'll get deep dives there in breakout sessions on technologies that are relevant to the blueprint. That'll help you to align and to move through your study program. And lastly, AI, right? AI is quickly transforming the landscape of learning. And so you can leverage AI in ways that in the past we wouldn't be able to think of, but they're available today. And I've actually included a couple of shots of using AI as a study buddy for preparing for the exam as we continue on the slides. Exam prep do's and don'ts. So on the do list would be to create a study plan. You want to know who you are, right? Whether you're a visual learner, whether you learn through in-class participation, or you're better off on your own, and create a really structured schedule that breaks this down. And we've been talking about how we break down the blueprint in terms of training. I would suggest the same kind of thing would be good in terms of a study plan. Get on a schedule, right? Make sure that you are hitting the appropriate number of hours per topic. And leave time in there for review and going back through and understanding the concepts that you had difficulty with. And along those lines, I would say to help you to really get a good structured study plan would be the second suggestion, and that's schedule the test. A lot of times I'd have people, as I was teaching class, ask me, we'd get into conversations of, so when do you think you might take the exam? And many times the answer would come back, well, I'm gonna study for it. When I feel like I'm ready for it, then I'm gonna go ahead and schedule it. And without fail, I would say don't do that. I would say schedule the test now, because it's important to set a date, right? If you set a date, now you're committed. And now you have something to bump your study plan schedule up against, and it becomes real. So I can't stress the importance of that. I would say schedule the test. Number one, it makes sure you have a slot available at the time that you're thinking about. But number two, it really sets the schedule for your study plan and solidifies that and gets you going in the right direction. And then lastly is to utilize reliable study resources. And we've talked about a lot of those here. The Cisco U site and our learning and our training, of course, I would be all about that. You just want to be careful that you're not using unreputable sites and resources, and don't short circuit it, right? Take the time and do it right, and I think you'll be happy with the results in the end. And then that gets us to exam prep don'ts. And the number one enemy of you is procrastination. Right? Don't put this off. If you put off studying for the test, it just leads to cramming. It leads to stress. It leads to situations that you could readily avoid. So it kind of goes hand in hand with setting the schedule and developing the plan. Don't rely on memorization, at least not solely on memorization. You heard George and Mohammed talk about how this is going to test your ability to comprehend and apply concepts. That's not just memorization. So that takes time. It takes effort. Make sure you have that focus and give yourself the appropriate time to get that done. And then lastly, don't ignore rest and self-care. The mind and the body go together. If you're healthy in one, and you'll be healthy in the other. So you don't ignore things like rest and proper diet. Again, it goes along with don't cram and stay up all night studying for the test. Put in the appropriate time up front, and I think that'll pay dividends in the end. And then I did say I was going to talk about AI Study Buddy, and I have just a couple of examples here. What I did was I used I used AI, and I actually went back. In this case, it's really domain 3. What you'll see in green in this slide, incident handling and incident response tools, I believe this is topic 3.1 through 3.4. And I really just asked AI, hey, can you give me some useful websites for exam topics? And this is what it came up with. And to me, it's just spot on. So it's just, I'm only scratching the surface here, because as you start looking at that blueprint and you start thinking about prompts that you can give to AI, this is just one place you can go, and or one example of the things you can do, and the kinds of information you can turn up. A lot of this would depend too, as you're going through and evaluating, where am I strong, where am I weak? Okay, and you can obviously use AI in this kind of scenario to turn up additional resources, and I find these to be highly efficacious. The last example I'll give in terms of AI buddy is prep questions. One thing AI is really phenomenal at, it just never gets tired of doing whatever you ask it to do. So I lit up AI and I said, give me 100 exam prep questions. And you can see this is down to question 40. It has no problem. And if you ask for multiple choice, or you ask for the formats that you heard George and Muhammad go through, AI will crank those out. In addition, you can do things like say, hey, look, I want to get 6 multiple choice questions on VPNs using IPsec and IKV2 at the cognitive level of, identify, and boom, it'll crank out just that. So you can take a look at the blueprint, you can take a look at the topics, you can take a look at the verbs, you can tie that together with the prompts in AI. It's very, very effective. One last thing I would say before turning it back over to you, Matt, is that, of course, you can't completely trust the questions from AI, right? We all know that AI, it's a work in progress. But even that, right? If you go through these questions, and I've got up to question 40 here, if I'm going through this myself and I hit a question and answer, and I look at AI and I say that doesn't seem right to me, and that's just more reason for me to drill down in that area and dot the I and cross the T. So I'm not saying AI is the panacea for all that ails you, and it'll answer everything correctly, but it'll certainly give you the ability to get out there and take a look at things and explore and understand where you're strong and not. And with that, Matt, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doug. And I think for myself personally, it's just with this AI tip here, one of the interesting things. It's a great way to mix it up, right? To break up your studies, and like you said, like, give me 5 questions on this, and then you can keep branching off and keep working on your prompt engineering. Always one of the fun options is, explain this to me as like a Bob Dylan song, for example, right? You want to mix things up and keep things a little bit, more fun and engaging. So I think that's a really good tip. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing all that, all of those exam prep tips and the overview of the Cisco U course. I do want to go ahead and bring in Mohammed and George back in, and we'll start to work through some of the questions that have come in from the attendees, from the folks watching this session today. Thank you, everybody, for the questions you've submitted so far. Please feel free to submit a couple more questions as you like. We do have a couple more poll questions open within that Slido event as well. But I'll keep an eye on the clock. But also, let's go ahead and dive into a couple of these questions here. We've had some really good questions. Always, without fail, one of the big questions that we get is about official course guide, study guide, book availability from Cisco Press. And for myself personally, and I'd like to ask you guys for any, your thoughts and perspective on this, but I always love to share with folks that Cisco Press is their own entity operated by Pearson. And so they'll set their own publishing schedule. So we may not necessarily be speaking to availability of a textbook today, but we can focus on the resources that our team is directly responsible for developing. And so in particular, I think the 2 big key points are the points that Mohammed and George made and Doug made as well, around leveraging the exam topics and understanding how to do your own self-study by using those exam topics, you can get started on that today. The exam topics blueprint is available right now. You can go download that and start to work your way through those topics today on your own as well. And then, of course, the great course that your team is putting together, Doug. And one of the attendees actually specifically asked, excuse me, what the name of the training will be for instructor-led training, as well as, of course, within the Cisco U platform. And could you give a reminder of your target availability of the publishing of the course?
Sure. The target availability is going to be the June, July timeframe of this year. And the name that I know of is Designing Cisco Security Infrastructure.
Perfect.
And I think it aligns to the blueprint. Let me double check that in the background, and I will get right back to you.
Okay, perfect. That sounds, if that's not word for word exactly 100% correct, I think that sounds pretty fairly accurate. Let's see here. So let's talk about, so that's the guidebooks, study resources. So the course, June, July availability. Let's talk about some of the questions and the topics really. So maybe George and Mohammed, just an anonymous person in the chat here asked, will the questions and the topics, and I know we can't share too much around the exact exam questions themselves, so of course we'll keep that NDA under consideration, but will the questions and topics focus on Cisco products and low-level questions about them? Or will the main focus be a higher level, more architectural type questions? How should folks, what's your recommendation for how folks should prepare for that?
Let me take this one. A blend. So the thing I would say is, first of all, look at the verbs. The verbs will be able to show you how deep or shallow the questions will go on specific topics. Now, in general, the exam will focus mainly on architectural concepts, but obviously, because this exam is a Cisco exam, you may find how these architectural concepts apply into Cisco products. So I would say a mixture, we do have a main focus on frameworks and approaches that the industry is taking, but at the same time, how you can apply these specific concepts in your infrastructure, utilizing Cisco products, but not only. I hope I answer your question.
Yep, no, I think that's perfect. And I think one thing to drill in there probably is in terms of like the low level of the questions on products. This isn't necessarily an engineering exam, right? We're not necessarily quizzing or writing questions that are going to ask for specific, configurations. Maybe some product knowledge.
No configurations. Features, maybe. Applications, maybe, but we will not go into the nitty-gritty or specific implementations, configurations, command line, or anything like that. As Matt said, and Matt, you were spot on that, try and approach this specific exam a little bit more higher level, right?
Yep. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, George. That's exactly right. And I had a follow-up thought on that, and I lost my train of thought because I got a little distracted by something in the Q&A, but that's okay. No, I think that's perfect. So basically, the understand the product portfolio, understand how they work together, understand from an architecture standpoint, but also you mentioned not just Cisco products, right?
Well, obviously, we cannot ask questions or test something which belongs to a different vendor or it's open source, but we can definitely ask questions about specific frameworks which are out there and Cisco uses them.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much. That makes total sense. Thank you. Mohammed, any additional thoughts or comments on that, or is that you feel that George covered it pretty perfectly?
Yeah, no, I would add here exactly, I mean, the compliance side. So there are a lot of standard compliance documents and NIST. There are Cisco Safe documentation, there is NIST, there is HIPAA, there is other industry standard document that the candidates would need to go through. Apart from that, on the automation and API side, there's a lot of open source tools, not essentially Cisco's, but again, as a lot of folks out there, they use them when they implement securing their infrastructure. So yeah, it's going to be combination of both. There is going to be involvement of Cisco tools, and there is going to be involvement of industry standard or open source tools out there.
I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the other things that I wanted to ask you guys about is specifically, with the Cisco certification portfolio, we don't have any prerequisite requirements any longer. We did away with that, gosh, almost 5 years ago now. But recommended pre-existing knowledge levels. And as I was looking through some of the exam topics, I see a lot of cybersecurity principle type topics, and I'm kind of curious, if you had any recommended kind of pre-existing knowledge that folks should consider. Should they maybe work on the CCST cybersecurity exam, or is it the CCNP Encore exam, where maybe they should focus first? Do you have any recommendations on where folks might want to focus first before sitting for this exam?
So I would say, I mean, again, it's a bit of a combination of both, because this particular exam not just focus on specifically any particular product, trying to configure a traditional firewall, etc. It covers, from the networking to compliance to development overall. So the potential candidate would sort of need to understand the cybersecurity elements, the network security element, the firewalls, the cloud security elements. It's kind of like cover architecturally all the grounds from where the attack can happen. So you would kind of need to think about it. The attack can happen, within inside. How do I protect inside of the network? How do I protect perimeter? How do I protect applications within the cloud? What are the other compliance standards I need to meet? So the study would involve various different topics and other. Yeah, George, if you have any insight on it.
No, buddy, I think you covered it spot on. The only thing that I want to say is that CCST is considered lower level, so I'm not 100% sure. Actually, I am sure that it would not cover specific concepts for the professional level. The the persona of the person who would go for this exam would be somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience in the security space and 2 to 3 years in designing security systems. Plus, what Mohammed said, I mean, I agree 100%. Yeah, the person needs to have an overall understanding of the concepts, of the frameworks, and at the same time of the Cisco devices to secure the network. I am 100% aligned with Mohammed. Mohammed, I echo what you said.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. And then let's see. Let's take a question here from Oscar. Oscar asked, given the fact that Cisco has multiple solutions for the same need, like SSL decryption, how does the certification address that? Are you able to kind of talk about how we look at balancing different solutions that kind of work towards similar, problems or similar solutions?
So, I mean, the blueprint itself obviously varies, and obviously there are certain tasks within the blueprint that deals with SSL decryption. Then there would be certain tasks in the blueprint that deals with cloud native application security. So, etc. So, each blueprint have certain weightings. So that you would get question, maybe 5 questions from a certain task, or 3 questions from other tasks. So if there is some similarities, maybe you get pose a question for one particular scenario in one question, and maybe a different particular scenario involving, maybe one question has SSL decryption and one question is to do with DLP, but the scenario, the business requirement has to do with, the data loss prevention. So we would split the technology and the questions, across the task within the blueprint.
I think that Oscar was referring to, since we've got different solutions to cover exactly the same thing, what kind of balance would it be, right? Matt, is this correct?
Yeah. Yep.
So I would say to Oscar, pay attention on the details. So the question, the way it's formulated, with the requirements, there might be an existing implementation that requires a specific solution. So definitely, there's different ways to skin the cat, right? You can have the same or similar results by deploying different devices, or taking different approaches. But the questions are written in such a way that they will redirect you to the appropriate answer. So again, although there are different ways to accomplish the same or similar thing, pay attention on the details of the question, and there will only be one if it is a pick one, or two if it is a pick two correct answers. So from that perspective, don't worry about that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, both George and Mohammed. And I'm going to keep a close eye on the clock here. We're just about at the top of the hour. I do want to ask a couple of more questions. We'll try to cover them briefly, and then we'll wrap up. And then we have some more questions that we can tackle in the written Q&A once we wrap up the audio video portion of this session. Specifically, coming back to the idea of preparing for the exam and how we work with kind of non-Cisco solutions for technologies, right? So Mohammed had asked, the exam covers WAF, which Cisco doesn't have a product for, to Mohammed's understanding there. So how would they prepare for that topic as an example? Is it basically how would folks prepare for that type of a topic, if you're able to share that?
Yeah, so WAF, I mean, Cisco currently have a product which is a secure web appliance, but you can achieve some of the functionality through next generation firewalls, whether you're talking about SSL decryption or, whichever particular feature. So if the exam will not, again, delve deep into a specific product, it will be, given a business scenario, and then depending on which your option will sort of needs to match. If you see on the blueprint, we don't specify on the blueprint that you need to specifically study a particular product. You need to look at the technology overall, and look at its technicalities within Cisco, which product can solve the problem within Cisco, and which product sort of solve that particular issue outside of Cisco. So it's going to give an overarching overview. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you so much, Mohammed. George, let me know if you have anything else to add. Otherwise, I saw two more good questions that I would love to tackle, and I lost one of them in the Q&A here, and I'm hoping I can find it quickly. I think I might have lost it. That's okay. We can look for that one and answer written if I can't find it. Where? Shoot, there's one more that I wanted to tackle, but I lost it. That's okay. Let's wrap up with a really good question from Hassan. And that's a question where basically Hassan's asking, with all of the other security certifications that we offer already. Oh, actually, before we do that, I do remember what the other question was. So for exams like the CCDE exam, the scenarios build on top of each other. One question that you answer affects future questions. Would that be the case for this exam, or are each questions kind of independent and isolated within themselves?
Each question is independent and individual.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. And then let's wrap with Hassan's question here. Hassan asked, right, like with all the other Cisco certifications, the security certifications that we offer, you know, what is this certification? What does it offer that's different? How is this certification, this exam, differentiated from all of our other certification offerings for security?
So I would say to that all of the certification, if you look at it from security side, so we have specific certification deals with firewall, we have specific certification that deals with VPN, with web security, with email security, cloud security. But they all of those certifications, they sort of deal with the nitty gritty of that particular product. So it would go into, it ask question related to configuring or troubleshooting that particular product, given the business scenario, technical scenarios. With this particular exam, the whole focus is, you need to put a design hat architecturally, and you need to look at it how to secure the enterprise infrastructure in general. Now, it could be a network within that infrastructure. It could be securing the cloud parameter. It could be, microservices architecture, or it could be your incident response, given the business requirement. So it kind of, at a very high level, deals with the security architecturally, other than actually going into product specifically into low level.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mohammed. George, anything you would like to add to that, or?
Mohammed covered it 100%. The only thing that I would add is that it's a new certification. You decided, right? So it should cover more things. But
Yeah.
no, Mohammed covered it 100%.
And I think it's a good question though, right? Because like a lot of our other exams are maybe more engineering focused, or cybersecurity operations focused, and it's almost like I think one of the questions that's good to end on to punctuate everything is, what's the value to organizations and employers for having somebody with a security design specialization skill set, and kind of big picture wise and kind of long term view wise. Why are folks looking for this type of skill set?
I think that this specific question matches very much with your previous question, Matt. So, as Mohammed said, the Cisco certification up until now, at least for the security space, they cover a specific topic: ICE, firewalling, cloud security. This certification, and again, I'm just repeating what Mohammed said previously, covers the entire security concept. So it doesn't focus on a specific thing or a specific device or a specific area. It covers the whole infrastructure. So if you ask me personally, for somebody to have a more holistic view and a more holistic approach for the entire infrastructure, it's extremely important.
I think that makes perfect sense, George. Thank you. I think as we see the security landscape and the threatscape ever changing and ever evolving, and really upskilling security engineers' abilities to go beyond just, not to minimize or trivialize what anybody's doing in the field today, but to go beyond configuring, strictly
Oh, absolutely.
configuration. Yep, exactly. And
Absolutely.
really think big picture and long view of the solutions that an organization needs today, but also for tomorrow, to protect the data and the security of the organization.
Of course.
Brilliant. Well, Doug, Mohammed, George, thank you all so much. I want to say thank you to all the folks that watched the session live today and participated in the Q&A. The Q&A is always my favorite part, not because I get to talk more than I do the rest of the session, but because it's always nice to hear what's on the community's mind and what questions they have, and it's nice to get that interaction and engagement. So thank you, everybody. We do have a bit of an end of the session survey in the Slido event that's available right now. We love your feedback on how the session went. And with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody and have a great rest of your day and good luck preparing for the certification exam. I'm excited to see us folks pass this exam, sharing your celebrations in the forum. And with that, hope to see you soon at Cisco Live as well. Thank you very much, everybody.